it was interesting to see that relationship as well, because it kind of showed the harsh reality of when a believer is with an unbeliever and how difficult it can be. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you are new. I'm so grateful to have you here. So my name is AkuaB and here on this channel I cover all things faith, lifestyle and beauty related. And in today's video, as a follow-up from my reaction to the trailer for The Case for Christ, I'm going to be now reviewing it and just fleshing out what happened in the movie and my thoughts on it. But before I get straight into that, I just want to quickly encourage you to leave a like down below on today's video and also comment something that you're enjoying about what I'm saying about the review and just stuff that you took from the movie as well if you've already watched it. And if you haven't already, then please make sure that you are subscribed to this channel so you never miss a video in the future. And if you haven't already and you're already subscribed, then please make sure to turn on the notification bell. And let's get straight into it. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go through the movie and I'm just going to talk about my favourite points. I've kind of written out a timeline of what happened throughout the movie, and I've literally just finished watching it for a second time over just to make sure that I catch everything and that I'm not missed any major moments. So I'm just going to go through the movie and just talk about all of the different major points throughout it. Okay, so the beginning of the movie kind of starts off with Lee Strobel, who is the main character, kind of being leveled up in his career. He just gets a promotion at the start of the movie, so it's talking about how like he's such a great he's such a great writer and all of this stuff, and he's just got a promotion at the start of the movie, and the whole part of the start of the movie is like a little compilation of his successes and everything that he's done to be where he is now at this promotion. So then after he gets promoted, there's like a celebration afterwards and it's all joyous and he's really happy and he's really content with his life. He got married, he's had a kid, he's got another one on the way, and now he's got a promotion. It seems like life is just couldn't get any better. So after this promotion, they go out to celebrate and they go out to eat, and this is where at dessert their little child, their little girl, I've forgotten her name, let me just quickly have a look at the cast and crew. So it's Alison, who is their daughter, and she asks for some dessert and they're like, yeah sure, like go get some dessert. So she goes to this candy machine and the camera goes off her once she goes to the candy machine, and then all of a sudden she comes back to the table like clutching at her throat, she's choking, all of this stuff. And then this is where everything starts to kind of crumble. So this is like the big catalyst to the rest of the movie, which is so strange, but God works in mysterious ways. So this is when they're introduced to Jesus. So the child is choking really badly. Like I've never seen someone choke to the point of like their life being in danger, but obviously choking is a way that you could unfortunately pass away if it's extreme. So this child is like choking really badly, and they start to like put her on the ground, try to like get this blockage out of her system and all of this stuff, and nothing's working. So they start to call for like call the cops, call the ambulance, like call someone to help, like is anyone available to help? And this woman puts herself forward and she's like, I'm a nurse, like everyone move away, like I'm a nurse, let me help. So she gets the child and like puts her down on her lap, and she's like not choking her, she's like trying to get the blockage out of her back, and she finally like releases it. And then afterwards they check that the child's okay. The nurse is like, she's coughing, it's fine, she's gonna be okay. And the parents are like, oh my goodness, like thank you so much, like we'll never forget you, all of this stuff. And the nurses and they're like, it's so lucky that you were here and all of this stuff. And she was like, no, it's Jesus. And she just says, it's Jesus. And yeah, so she said it's Jesus. And then the mother, I forget her name, I'm really bad with names. The mother, who was Leslie Strobel, she kind of hangs on to that when she says it's Jesus, because the couple that were there for dinner, which part of which the nurse was in the couple, they were meant to actually go to dinner at another place that night, but they went to that place because Alfie Davis, the person that was the nurse, said, I had a feeling to come here, and like I was meant to be here. There's no ifs with God. So it was like, oh, like, okay. So like Leslie, the wife, Leslie Strobel, holds on to that, what she says, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna run with this, kind of in my mind. Like that's what you see in her brain kind of working it out, like, okay, like let me stick with this a bit. And the husband, Lee Strobel, is very dismissive. He's like, thanks, yeah, great, you did a good job, my daughter Alison is great, thank you, and goodbye. So that's where that scene ends. And then the Alfie Davis ends up telling her where she works. So then afterwards, the wife is can't get over it. She's just like, my daughter could have died that night. Like she sees the severity of it and the miraculous like incident that happened that night. So I think it's either the day after or a while after, and she goes to the hospital that Alfie Davis works at, and she was like, you need to tell me more, like nothing's making sense, like this is just like been on my heart, it's been on my mind like a lot, I can't get over it. So she's like asking all these questions about faith and stuff like that. She's like, how can you be so sure, like you sound so sure? And Alfie Davis is like, I can show you, like I can tell you why I'm so sure. So then they go to Alfie's church, and that is where they get introduced to Christianity. Okay, so in my notes I've called this section Gaining Steam, because this is where things start to really like roll ahead and like roll downhill, and like everything just starts to gain steam. So this is where there's some changes in the wife, Leslie Strobel. So once she goes to church and starts reading her Bible, there's some visible changes in her character, in the way that she's going about life, and her husband Lee Strobel starts to notice this, and he's questioning her like, what is this change, like all of this, like you've changed, what's going on? And she lets him in, and this causes a little bit of conflict, because he's totally like this isn't, you know. And I forgot to mention actually in the first part, the introduction and all of that stuff, like the start of the film, the daughter, when they got home, because she was overhearing after she had choked, she was overhearing the conversation between the nurse Alfie Davis and her mum about Jesus, and she was like, she asked the parents when they got home and they were putting her to bed, she was like, who's Jesus? And then the mother started to talk about, oh, he's a great man, and you know, like the stories we read and stuff like that, he's a great man. And the dad is like, well, we're atheists. And it's just like, it's really funny to see, well, it's not funny, but it's like, it was funny at the time to see how he interjected and tried to like obliterate any kind of knowledge or good thought about Jesus. So yeah, that was just a part that was quite interesting. So he started to see these changes in his wife, and he tries to shoot this down almost as quickly as he did with his daughter. But obviously his wife is her own person, and she's very like, obviously she's a grown-up, she can think for herself and all of this stuff, whereas the child is a bit more impressionable, like they'll believe what the parents believe most of the time. So the wife starts to change, and this is where she starts to go to church, she gets really into her word and all of this stuff, and he just really doesn't approve of any of this. So then he doesn't like her change to the point that he's going to start an investigation and build a case up against the validity of Christianity. So then he approaches one of his like co-workers or something like that, who is a Christian, I think, or has faith at least, and he's like, so how do I disprove this whole thing? And the guy is like, well, people have been trying that since like since Jesus was on this earth, so like I highly doubt you're going to be able to do that. But if you did want to try it, you'd have to start with the crucifixion, because the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus is what the whole of Christianity depends on. So if you want to go for it, go for the jugular with the crucifixion, and you know, that is the foundation to everything. So once you've toppled that block, like everything else comes crashing down. So then this starts his investigation, and he goes and talks to all different types of professionals, doctors, psychologists, historians, and also alongside this, there's a parallel storyline to his journey and his case for or against Christ. And this is a storyline into a man who is involved in a police shooting. Basically, it's just a man and a policeman, and the policeman ends up shot and wounded, but he's still alive. So there's an investigation into what actually happened, and that kind of parallels. And his promotion was to like legal affairs or something like that. So he's going to be reporting on like court cases, criminal investigations, all of that stuff. So it kind of parallels on that story, and you'll see a bit of a reflection in how he handles Christianity and faith and evidence reflected into how he handles this investigation and this whole topic. And then that will be a turning point later on in the movie. Okay, so I've just realised that I've spent around 10 minutes like explaining the movie, so I'm just going to quickly zoom through the rest of the movie and just get my points out of the major things that happened, and then I'll go into my thoughts and general opinions about the movie. Okay, so we're heading towards the turning point of the movie. So this is when Lee's wife, Alison, I think, invites him, oh no, it's Leslie, invites him, oh that's the daughter, Leslie invites him to church one day, and he's like, yeah, sure, like let me go, and basically the result of him going to church is that he kind of slightly threatens Alfie Davis into kind of cautioning her away from getting his wife Leslie more involved into Christianity, and he's kind of like, this is your fault, like stop leading her into this, and like just leave her alone. We appreciate what you did for our daughter, but now it's time to stop. So then after that, Lee's parents visit the home because they've just had their child, and they called him, let me have a gander, will it show it? I'm not sure. So anyway, they have a child, and that's why the parents come to visit. They come to see the child and just check up on them and all that stuff. So he doesn't have a really good relationship, especially with his dad. So when he comes, there's a bit of tension and it's really awkward, and it just ends up in like a little fight, and they end up leaving. So then after that, it's just building up this frustration towards Christianity and Jesus, because he feels like his wife is changing, and he can't have her back. So one of his co-workers is like, yes, you're so passionate about like disproving Christianity and all of this stuff, but do remember that you have a wife, and remind her that you love her and all of that stuff. So he suggests that they should go on a date, and they should go out for something to eat and a dance and all of that stuff. So she's like, yeah, sure. So they go, and when they get back, it turns up into a little fight, like quite a big fight, and he's kind of like, I don't know how much longer I can deal with this. If this is in the next 5 years, if this is in the next 2 years, like I don't think I can deal with this. So that's kind of quite a sad part of the movie, where it's kind of like his wife Leslie kind of goes into a panic because she's like, my husband, like he's not going to change, and this and that. And then that's where she kind of gets a pep talk from Alfie Davis, and she's kind of like, read over Ezekiel, a chapter in Ezekiel, a verse in Ezekiel, I think it was, I can't remember the exact verse, but it was basically about removing the heart of stone from Lee and replacing it with a heart of flesh. So she goes on to pray that throughout the movie, and just pray for him and all of that stuff. So in conclusion, the movie concludes with his wife getting baptized. He finds out that the man who, the criminal investigation that was running parallel to his Case for Christ kind of article / investigation, he finds out that this man was actually innocent, and he was a police informant, and this guy actually ended up getting beat up in prison, and after he got beat up in prison, he was kind of like, oh goodness me, I need to go visit him and like tell him that I know he's innocent and all of this stuff. Because basically he finds out that the policeman had some dodgy things going on, and he had like a pen in his pocket that shot himself. So it wasn't the guy that shot the police officer, it was the police officer that had a non-legal or something, like it wasn't an authorized weapon that the police officers could carry, and it was like a pen that was a gun, and that shot him accidentally. So he finds out that the guy is innocent, so he goes and visits him in hospital, and the guy says something along the lines of, because Lee says to him, sorry, I just, like, the evidence, like, I didn't see it. And the guy says to him, you didn't want to see it. And it's like, oh, like, is this a little crossover here? Are we talking about the investigation as well into Christ? So after that, his dad actually dies whilst he's still in this investigation and trying to build up this case for Christ. And that kind of shakes him up, because he's been going to all these different professionals, and they've all given him quite convincing evidence for Christ and not against Christ. So at this point, he's kind of like, he just needs that cherry on the top. So after his dad passes, he goes back home, because he went out to another state to further investigate. So he came back and for the funeral, and as he's going around his father's house, he goes into his study room or something like that, and his mum comes in, and she gets out an album and puts it on the desk that he's sitting at, and she's like, your dad kept every single article that you ever wrote. And I was just like, oh my goodness. Like, they had a strained relationship, but he still loved him, and it just shows that, you know, it was difficult for them to have a relationship, but he was still caring for him behind the scenes and in his heart. So yeah, so his dad died, and he realised that obviously his dad loved him, and he was just sobbing over it and stuff. And he had obviously a difficult relationship with his dad. And something that psychologists actually said was that people who are atheists, and not all of them obviously, but like, they tend to have a strained or non-existent relationship with their father. So it was interesting for him to come to that realisation of, I do have a loving father, and to know that it's possible and what it actually feels and stuff like that. So yeah, that was kind of the conclusion of the summary of the movie, which took quite a long time. Okay, so in general, what did I think of the movie? So I think pacing wise, it was really good. Like, it was always doing something, and obviously in real life, I don't know if it was as fast paced as this, or whether it took years or something like that, but the pacing was really good of the film. In the start, it was great to see that kind of climax of, he was such a great writer and all of this stuff, and his promotion and all of this stuff, and it seemed like his life was content. And then obviously his wife to start to convert to Christianity and to follow Jesus, it was kind of a surprise. So it was interesting to see that relationship as well, because it kind of showed the harsh reality of when a believer is with an unbeliever and how difficult it can be. And that's why it tells us in the Bible to be equally yoked, and that how can two walk together or something if they don't agree? So it just showed that quite vividly, because I think that's something people can consider, and they're like, oh well, I don't think it's that important to marry someone of the same faith or this and that, but obviously it was very important for them and their relationship, and it changed things quite a lot in the dynamics of their relationship. So it's interesting to see that, and the fact that it wasn't as censored as I thought it would be, especially for a film on Pureflix. So I'm glad that they showed the realism behind the real life events that do happen, and just showing that dose of realism, because I think sometimes, especially Christian movies, they can be a bit like very on the happy-go-lucky side, and it's very like, if there's any kind of negative thing in the movie, then it's minimized. So I'm glad that they really fleshed out that kind of non-belief that Lee had before he became a Christian, and the long time it took for him to get to the point of belief. And also the way that it showed support systems to be so valuable, because in times of when we're going through struggle or anything like that, it's always nice to know that people are praying for you, that people are with you, that people are thinking of you. And just that relationship that Leslie had with Alfie Davis was just really nice to see, and really encouraging. So yeah, that was really good. Overall, I would say the film was, if I had to rate it like out of 5, I would say it was a strong 4.9. I don't know what that 0.1 is. I think it's just maybe a bit more realism, like a tiny bit more. But everything was really good. It was like it seemed a really good film. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like, it could have been in the movie. I could have went to see it and really enjoyed it. Yeah, and especially for a Christian film, I think it did a good job of not being too happy-go-lucky, but also containing the real struggles of coming to faith from atheism or just like a non-religious background. So that was really good in showing the relationships that happened, especially with the daughter as well. Like at the end, one thing that I really liked was that it showed, I always like it when movies do this, it's kind of nostalgic to show like the progression of each character's life after the fact, and the way that Lee's faith and his wife's faith impacted their children was so profound. Like, both of their children grew up to be believers and write literature and speak and become professors and this and that about Christianity, and they followed Jesus. So it's just interesting to see that generational effect that it's had on the Strobel line already. And even though Lee struggled and obviously had his hardships through that, as well as Leslie did, I love the fact that they could reconcile that and they could move forward. So it's definitely a success story, and just God is so good and he's been glorified so much through that story. So I'm so glad that I watched it. And yeah, I was meant to review another film before this one, but I didn't, because I was like, once I saw the trailer I was like, this is going to be good. And as well as the fact that it is a good movie, it was based on a true story, like, so I can't really be like, this bit was bad and this bit was bad and I wish this bit was more dramatized, because it's real life. Like, I'm so glad that we have stories and films out there that are based on real life, so that we can see the glory of God in action, like the way that God is being glorified through people's lives. And even though it might take a long time for people to come to faith, it's always a testament to the goodness of God to see those people do a 180 in their life, from atheism to faith, from not so good relationship with their father to reconciliation and like healing and all of that stuff. So it was just really nice to see, and overall I thought it was a really great movie. Okay, so that is the end of today's review of The Case for Christ. If you enjoyed that, then please make sure to leave a like down below and also comment something that you enjoyed from my review. If you haven't already, then please make sure that you are subscribed to this channel so you never miss another upload, and also make sure to turn on the notification bell, and I'll catch you in my next one. Stay blessed and bye!